Okay, I just got back from my Danville meet and greet, and holy shit, that was such a roller coaster of an experience, because there was some good and some bad things that have happened during the meet and greet. So I think in a separate video I'm probably gonna talk about the drama, even though I don't like that word, and I don't know if that's the correct term, but there were some issues that happened during the Dan and Phil meet and greet. So their meet and greet started at 2:30, and I didn't get out of there until 5. It was a really long meet and greet, and it was a lot longer than it was supposed to be. So, but aside from that, just from standing or from waiting in line for what felt like 84 years, it felt like 84 years. That moment I had with them was memorable, and it was a moment I will never want to forget. So I'm gonna explain exactly what happened based on what I can remember, and some details might be it's like I might have like forgotten some certain details, but I know that for sure like things were being said at certain parts. So let me just start with the story before I lose myself and before I lose anyone out there. First and foremost, the meet and greet was being rushed because I was the 8th person from being the last person, and so I was near the end of the line, and by that time the meet and greet has already gone on for like 3 or more hours, which was super incredibly long, and it went far much longer than it was supposed to. So by then I was like already being rushed to like, okay, you can only get one thing signed, one picture, and go. And I even asked the volunteer like, how much time do I get to talk to them? And she said to me 10 seconds. And I'm just like, holy fuck. Yes. How much time can I talk to them? 10 seconds. And I really want to find any chance I can get to buy time to say what I need to say was worth it. So I gave up the chance to get something signed. I gave up that little hug that Danville usually gives their viewers in the beginning of their meet and greet. But it was just to say, like, I needed extra time to say what I need to say. I felt so bad for rejecting Phil's hug in the very beginning, but I honestly had to buy extra time for myself because I was already being rushed so much. When the person in front of me got her thing signed, and her photograph, she left. And so it was just me and Dan Phil, and they were looking at me like, okay, here we go, let's do this. And I walked up to Phil, and he had his arms wide open for a hug. And I had to tell him like, wait, before I give you a hug, can I tell you something? And he said, yes. And he said it in a way that's like, yeah, of course, duh. So I went over to Dan as well, because I mean, I don't want to exclude him. And he's like, hi. And I was like, hi. So it's okay if I can hold your hands because I'm gonna be really emotional right now. And they're like, yes, of course. They're like, yeah, of course. And they held my peasant hands, and I said that I want to say that 2016 has been one of the hardest years of my life. And then at that moment, like, they just slowly let go of my hands, and I was like, wait, that's not what I want to say. Like, that's not all I needed to say, though. Well, I was like, that's okay. If you don't want to touch my peasant hands, that's okay. After I said 2016 has been one of the hardest years of my life, Dan looked at me and said, oh, why is that? And he said it in a way that was really concerned, and I really appreciated that he even asked that, because he was really interested in learning why I was going through a tough time in 2016, which I didn't expect him to even ask. And I told him that's because I transferred colleges from a local college to a university that was hours away from home. And it was hard for me because I was away from everything that I knew. And they both were like, oh, yeah. And I think Dan said, yeah, something like that is really hard. And I think Phil was just like, yeah. She's just nodding his head like, yeah. And then I said, one of the things I really struggled with at my school was that it was very uninclusive. And I just noticed that right away Dan had this really sad, concerned look, like, in a way, his face was just saying, like, I'm sorry that you experienced that. It's like, man, that must be really hard. Phil also was, like, really sad. He was like, oh, like, well, he didn't make that noise, but he was like, oh. And I told them, because my school was very uninclusive, I felt that I was very isolated from everyone, and I was depressed, and I had attempted suicide twice, and both of them were quiet, like, it was just silence. And Phil was just like, had a really sad look, like, oh. And I didn't even think he said, oh no. And I said that after, they both had a really sad expression. And I told them that after I was discharged from the hospital, and after the hospital, I found their videos. I found their face swap video.
All the single fillers, all the single fillers.
Is that Beyonce?
Hey, it's me, bae.
Is that...
Dan, it's time to live your dream.
I think Kanye looks better with no hair. Stop taking photos of me.
Oh my god, I see being Kanye. Look at this. What's up, Kanye here?
And then Dan had a really happy smile on his face, and he said, oh, that's so nice to hear. And he was like looking at Phil and then me. He was like, yeah, that's so nice to hear that you found that video and that made you happy. And he said one of the main reasons why they make videos is that they want to help make people happy. And one of the things that really pushes them to make videos and has motivated them to make content is that it is able to help, like, people like me to be happy. And then I said to them, like, thank you so much for everything that you've done. And it's like, thank you. And then Phil looked at me and he said, now can I have a hug? And then I said, yes, of course. And like, yes. And then I gave him a hug, and that was being sarcastic, and I was like, no, but yes, of course. And I gave him a hug. And then, like, imagine me just saying, no, I don't want a hug. But of course I gave him a hug. And then after that, I seriously don't remember what happened. Everything happened in a blink of an eye. It just happened so quickly. But I'm pretty sure I gave Dan a hug, because if I didn't, I'm pretty sure he would have had his arms out like, oh, where's my hug? But I'm pretty sure I gave him a hug, because right after that, Dan said, would you like a photograph with us? Or would you like a photograph? And I said, yes. And then he said, let me take the picture because I have long giraffe arms. I was like, yeah, okay, that works. And then he took a few photos. And then before I left, like, by that time, I was already being rushed, girl. I was being rushed. And I said, I just want to say that your live shows have really helped me. And then they were like, oh, thank you. Like, oh, that's so nice. And then I said my goodbyes. I was like, bye. Like, thank you for everything. Take care. Bye. And then Dan said, I guess I'll see you on you now, or I'll see you on the live chat. Like, see you on the internet. And then I went off my merry way, and after they both said bye, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that moment was over so quickly. I imagine it so differently in my head. But I mean, I'm so happy with my little special moment, even if it was the shortest minute I've ever ever held a conversation with anyone. It meant the world to me. And even if they will not remember me, they're probably going to forget me after today, which I don't mind. I'm just glad that that moment was something I've waited so long for, and it happened. It finally happened. And that they finally noticed me, and I finally was able to say thank you and was able to look them in the eyes. And yeah, it was a moment I'll never forget. I mean, some things probably were said a little differently than how I remembered, but pretty much that's the rundown of what happened.
Keep going up there. Go ahead. Right up there next.
Yes. Hello there. How are you? Yes, of course. Okay. That's okay. Oh, that's a big deal.
Sorry. You took it out of it.
Oh my gosh.
Nobody's over here, please.
And that, my friends, is when the volunteer told my friend to stop videotaping. But regardless, I hope you had a nice time listening to my story. I definitely enjoyed sharing my side of what happened between Dan, Phil, and I. But until next time, bye!